Welcome back to Silent Revenge, with a new story that will touch your heart and blow your mind. The memory is etched into my mind, as sharp and painful as the day it happened. I was 16. The air in our cramped, perpetually dusty house was thick with the smell of cheap perfume and resentment. My older sister, Celeste, was standing on a wobbly stool in the middle of the living room, a vision in a sequined dress that cost more than my father's monthly salary. She was the princess, preparing for her coronation, the annual winter gala at the country club where my mother worked as a housekeeper. "Turn, my darling, let me see," my mother, Brenda, cooed, her hands fluttering around Celeste like anxious birds, adjusting a strap, smoothing a wrinkle that didn't exist. My father, Frank, stood by, his hands shoved in his pockets, a look of pure, unadulterated pride on his worn face. "You look like a movie star, sweetheart. They won't know what hit them." I stood in the doorway of my tiny bedroom, clutching my acceptance letter to the state science fair. My project on sustainable energy filtration had won first place at the district level. It was my ticket out, my one shimmering hope. I'd worked on it for months in the garage, surrounded by my father's discarded tools and my mother's indifference. "I got in," I said, my voice too loud in the small space. "The state finals. They're this weekend. In the city. They provide a bus, but I need money for meals. Just $20. The room went quiet. Celeste stopped preening. My mother's fluttering hands stilled. My father's proud smile melted into a frown of inconvenience. "This weekend," my mother said, her voice losing its honeyed tone. "Ava, you know that's the gala. We have to be there for Celeste. It's crucial for her, networking." "Networking?" I echoed, a hollow feeling opening up in my chest. "She's 17. I'm trying to get a scholarship." "Don't take that tone with me," my father snapped. "Celeste has prospects. This gala is important for her future. Your science project is a hobby." A hobby. The word was a physical blow. The late nights, the burned fingers from soldering wires, the intricate diagrams, the hope, it was all just a hobby to them. "We don't have extra money for bus fare and city meals, Ava," my mother said, her final verdict delivered with a sigh, as if I were a persistent mosquito. "Maybe next year." There was no next year. This was my only chance. I looked at Celeste, who offered a tiny, smug shrug, as if to say, "What did you expect?" That was the moment the last thread of hope inside me snapped. I wasn't just overlooked, I was willfully erased. The invisible daughter. The one with the unladylike interests, the quiet one who didn't shine brightly enough to illuminate their narrow world. I didn't cry. I just turned, walked back into my room, and closed the door. I listened to them leave, their laughter echoing down the street as they drove off to celebrate Celeste's prospects. The next day, I went to the library. I used their computer to email the science fair organizers, declining my spot. Then, I spent 6 hours researching business grants for teenagers. I found one, a long shot, for innovative engineering projects. I poured my heart and my science fair research into that application. It was my Hail Mary. I won. The grant was for $5,000. It wasn't a fortune, but it was a seed. I told my parents I'd gotten a part-time job at a tech repair shop. They barely acknowledged it. They were too busy celebrating Celeste's engagement to the son of a country club member. I moved out the day I turned 18, with a single suitcase and that $5,000 seed, now grown into a small savings account from my job. I rented a room in a shared apartment near the university I attended on a full scholarship. I studied computer science and engineering. I worked 3 jobs. I existed on coffee and determination. For 12 years, I built my life in silence. They never called. They never visited. My birthday cards went unanswered. I heard about their lives through the gossiping aunt I kept in touch with, Celeste's lavish wedding, the grandchildren they doted on, my father's retirement. I was a ghost in their family narrative, a footnote they'd gladly edited out. And I built my revenge. Not with malice, but with focus. That $5,000 seed didn't just grow, it exploded. My university project, a revolutionary data encryption algorithm, was bought by a tech giant while I was still a sophomore. I started my own company. We developed secure communication networks for corporations, then governments. The quiet, unladylike girl with the science project was now the founder and CEO of Aegis Systems, a billion-dollar tech empire. I lived in a glass and steel mansion on a cliff overlooking the ocean, a world away from that dusty, cramped house. My life was one of curated silence and immense success. But the ghost of the invisible girl still lingered in the opulent hallways. My assistant, a sharp, loyal man named David, handled my life with military precision. One evening, he called me in my home office, his voice hesitant. "Ava, there's someone at the main gate. They're insisting on seeing you." On the security monitor, the feed from the imposing front gate filled the screen. And there they were. My parents. Frank and Brenda. 12 years older, their faces etched with lines I didn't recognize, their clothes looking shabby against the backdrop of my wealth. They stood huddled together, their postures bent not by age, but by a palpable, desperate anxiety. They were speaking into the intercom, their voices tinny and pleading through the speaker. "Ava, honey? It's Mom and Dad. Please. We need to talk to you. It's important." I stared at the screen, my heart a cold, still stone in my chest. The last time I'd seen them, they were dismissing my future. Now, they were standing at the gates of the future I'd built without them, begging for an audience. The invisible daughter was no longer invisible. And I held all the power. I pressed the intercom button, my voice calm, devoid of any emotion. "State your business." The silence that followed my question was louder than any plea. I watched them on the monitor, my mother clutching my father's arm, her face a mask of shock. They hadn't expected a cold, digital interrogation. They'd expected a tearful reunion, perhaps. Or at least a door opened out of guilt or obligation. "Ava, it's us," my father said, his voice cracking. "Your parents." "I can see that," I replied, my tone flat. "You have 30 seconds to state your business, or security will escort you from the property." My mother pushed my father aside, her face pressing close to the camera. "Ava, please. It's family business. It's about Celeste." Celeste. Of course. It was always about Celeste. A part of me, the 16-year-old girl in the doorway, wanted to slam the virtual door in their faces. But the woman I had become, the CEO who negotiated with sharks, was intrigued. What could possibly be so dire that they would crawl to the daughter they had exiled? "Wait there," I said, and released the intercom button. I didn't go to the gate. I instructed David to have security pat them down and bring them to the main house. I would receive them not as a daughter, but as a hostile witness. I stood in the center of my great room, a vast space with floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the violent, beautiful expanse of the ocean. The room was a testament to my success, minimalist, expensive, and cold. I wore a simple black designer dress, my hair pulled back in a severe ponytail. I was armoring myself. The large, oak doors swung open, and David ushered them in. They stumbled to a halt, their eyes wide with awe and terror. They looked like tourists who had wandered into a museum by mistake. They gaped at the soaring ceilings, the modern art on the walls, the sheer, impossible scale of it all. "Ava," my mother breathed, her eyes finally landing on me. "My God. This is all yours." "It is," I said, not moving from my spot. "You mentioned Celeste." My father found his voice, though it was rough with emotion. "It's her husband, Kevin. He's in trouble. Bad trouble. He invested all their money, borrowed more, a lot more. From the wrong people." The story tumbled out in a messy, panicked heap. Kevin, the golden boy from the country club, had gotten involved in a speculative venture that had collapsed. He owed millions. Dangerous millions. The kind that came with threats of broken bones and worse. "They've taken everything," my mother wept, real tears streaking her makeup. "The house is being foreclosed. The cars are gone. They're threatening the children, Ava." My father stepped forward, his hands outstretched in a pleading gesture I'd never seen from him. "We've given them everything we have. Our retirement is gone. But it's not enough. We need $2 million. Just to make them go away, to give Kevin a chance to start over." I let the number hang in the air. $2 million. To them, it was an impossible, astronomical sum. To me, it was a rounding error in my quarterly charitable donations fund. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. They stared at me as if I'd spoken in another language. "Why?" my mother repeated, her tears turning to confusion. "Ava, she's your sister. We're your family." "Am I?" I asked, taking a slow step toward them. "Was I family when you told me my science fair was a hobby? Was I family when you didn't have $20 for my bus fare but could buy Celeste a sequin dress? Was I family for the last 12 years, when none of you picked up a phone to see if I was even alive?" The questions landed like physical blows. My father flinched. My mother's face crumpled. We made mistakes," my father stammered. "We were focused on. Celeste needed more attention." "Celeste always needed more attention," I countered, my calm beginning to fracture, revealing the raw hurt beneath. "And you were always happy to give it to her, at my expense. You didn't just exclude me. You erased me. And now that your golden child has fallen, you remember you have another daughter? Not to reconcile. Not to make amends. But to use as an ATM. That's not true," my mother cried. "We love you. Do you?" I shot back, my voice rising for the first time. "What's my favorite color? What was the name of my first company? What illness did I almost die from 3 years ago? Do you even know?" Their silence was my answer. It was a deafening, absolute void. I walked to the window, looking out at the endless ocean, my back to them. I could feel their desperation filling the room, a thick, suffocating fog. I will not give you $2 million, I said, my voice flat once more. A sob escaped my mother. Ava, please. They'll hurt them. They'll hurt the grandchildren. I turned around, my decision made. My revenge would not be turning them away. That would be too easy, too quick. My revenge would be to make them understand, truly and completely, the cost of their neglect. I will not give you the money, I repeated. But I will offer a solution. Hope flickered in their eyes, desperate and fragile. I will pay the debt, I said. But not as a gift. As a business transaction. A transaction, my father echoed. Yes. You will sign a legally binding contract. You, and Celeste, and Kevin. The $2 million will be a loan. With interest. You will work it off. Work it off, my mother whispered. How? We have nothing left. Oh, you have something, I said, a cold smile touching my lips. You have your labor. I own a manufacturing plant that produces the hardware for my security systems. It requires janitorial staff. Maintenance crews. It's honest work. Hard work. You, Dad, and Kevin will work on the factory floor. You, Mom, and Celeste will work on the cleaning crew. You will be paid a fair wage, from which the loan repayment will be automatically deducted. It will take you approximately 20 years to pay it back, with interest. They stared at me, their faces blank with horror. The thought of scrubbing floors, of working a factory line, was a fate worse than poverty in their world. You can't be serious, my father gasped. I am utterly serious, I said. It's a better deal than you ever gave me. You gave me nothing. I'm offering you a way out. A hard one, but a way out nonetheless. That is my final offer. I had taken their desperation and handed it back to them, reshaped into a sentence. They had come begging for a handout. I had given them a choice, ruin, or a lifetime of penance. The invisible daughter was no longer asking to be seen. She was forcing them to look at what they had created. The silence in the great room was broken only by the distant crash of waves against the cliffs. My parents stood before me, two statues of shattered pride. My mother's face was ashen, her carefully maintained composure completely obliterated. My father's shoulders, usually pulled back with a stubborn sort of pride, were slumped in defeat. You want us to be janitors? My mother finally whispered, the word itself seeming to taste foul in her mouth. I want you to honor a debt, I corrected her, my voice cool and precise. The same way I had to honor mine. The difference is, my debt was to myself. Yours is to me. Ava, this is cruel, my father said, his voice thick with a mixture of shame and anger. I took a step closer, the heels of my shoes clicking on the polished concrete floor. Cruel? Cruel was watching you drive away to a gala while I gave up my one chance. Cruel was 12 years of silence. This is business. This is accountability. You raised me to be practical, didn't you? Or was that just a lesson for the daughter you didn't care about? My words hung in the air, stripping away their last vestiges of parental authority. In this room, in this mansion, I was the authority. What about the children? My mother pleaded, resorting to her final card. Your nieces and nephew? They're innocent in all this. They are, I agreed. And their safety is the only reason this offer is on the table. While you and Celeste are paying off your debt, the children will live here, with me. Their jaws dropped. Here, my father stammered. Yes. They will be enrolled in the best private schools. They will want for nothing. They will be safe. Consider it an investment in a future that isn't poisoned by the same values that ruined their parents. I let that sink in. I will give them the support I never received. You can either accept this and know they are protected, or you can walk away and face the consequences of Kevin's failures on your own. It was a checkmate. They could not refuse the safety of their grandchildren. But accepting it meant surrendering completely to my terms. It meant a total inversion of their world. We need to talk to Celeste, my father said weakly. You have 24 hours, I said, turning my back to them, a clear dismissal. David will provide you with the contract. Don't come back until you've decided. I didn't watch them leave. I heard their shuffling footsteps, the soft click of the door, and then they were gone. The great room felt large and empty again, but the ghost of their presence remained. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. The 16-year-old girl inside me was terrified they would choose ruin over my humiliating salvation. The CEO was confident they had no other move. They returned the next evening, all of them. My parents, looking even more diminished, and Celeste. My beautiful, perfect sister. Her face was puffy from crying, her designer clothes looking ridiculous and out of place. She couldn't even meet my eyes. We'll do it, my father said, his voice a hollow echo. We'll sign. David, ever the professional, had the contracts ready. I watched as they each signed their names, Frank, Brenda, Celeste, and a trembling Kevin, who had been waiting in the car. They were signing away their pride, their social standing, their very identities, for the next 2 decades. The following week was a surreal spectacle of silent revenge. I had my lawyers fast-track the transfer of the $2 million to pay off Kevin Fest's debts. The threats vanished. The immediate danger was gone, replaced by the long, slow grind of their new reality. On Monday, they started their jobs. I didn't go to the factory to watch. I didn't need to. The plant manager, a no-nonsense woman named Maria, reported directly to me. She knew the situation in broad strokes, a personal favor for the CEO, with strict instructions for no special treatment. The reports were illuminating. Frank, who had never held a job more physically demanding than a mid-level office manager, struggled with the repetitive, strenuous tasks on the assembly line. Kevin, the country club prince, was sullen and incompetent, constantly trying to charm or bully his way out of work, and failing miserably. Brenda and Celeste on the cleaning crew was the true masterpiece of penance. My mother, who had always looked down on the help, was now one of them. Maria reported that Celeste spent her first day crying in the bathroom, unable to bear the humiliation of scrubbing toilets while wearing rubber gloves. I received a photo from Maria, taken discreetly. It showed my mother, in a drab uniform, mopping the factory floor, her face a mask of utter defeat. It was the polar opposite of the image I had of her fluttering around Celeste in her sequined dress. The contrast was more satisfying than any shouted, "I told you so." They were shy, scared, and bewildered by their new, opulent surroundings. The first night, Sophia had a nightmare. I heard her crying and went to her room. She was huddled in the center of a bed that was far too large for her. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't a mother. I was the estranged, terrifying aunt. But I sat on the edge of her bed and tentatively patted her back. "It's too big," she whispered, her small body trembling. "I know," I said softly. It was for me, too, at first. I stayed until she fell asleep. The next day, I had my interior designer convert a sunroom into a cozy, smaller bedroom for them, with bunk beds and walls the color of a summer sky. This wasn't part of the revenge. This was something else. This was healing. In giving them the security I never had, I was somehow soothing the ghost of that 16-year-old girl. Liam loved science. I set up a lab for him in one of the spare rooms. Sophia loved to paint. I covered a wall with her vibrant, chaotic artwork. My silent revenge was unfolding perfectly. My family was broken, humbled, and working off their debt. And heard Sophia's giggle echo through the halls. I realized the revenge I had so carefully planned was changing. It was no longer about their punishment. It was about my reclamation. A year passed. The rhythm of our new, fractured family life settled into a strange, quiet normalcy. My parents and Celeste would arrive every Sunday afternoon, their hands raw, their postures permanently stooped from a week of hard labor. They would sit stiffly in my living room, making stilted conversation with the children, their eyes filled with a complex mixture of gratitude, shame, and resentment. The transformation in them was profound. The pretension was gone, sanded away by the relentless grind of manual work. My father's hands, once soft, were now calloused. My mother's gossipy chatter had been replaced by a weary silence. Celeste had lost her entitled sparkle, she was just a tired, hollowed-out woman. They were, for the first time, real. One Sunday, my mother was watching Sophia draw. The little girl was chattering away about her painting, a wild, colorful explosion of shapes. "And this is the happy house, Grandma. Where everyone is nice and no one yells." My mother's face crumpled. She looked from Sophia's innocent, joyful creation to the opulent room around her, to me, sitting silently in a chair, observing. A single tear traced a path through the foundation she still stubbornly wore. "I'm sorry, Ava," she whispered, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. The room went still. My father looked down at his hands. Celeste stiffened. "What did you say?" I asked, my voice calm. She looked up, her eyes swimming in tears. I said I'm sorry. For everything. For the science fair. For the dress. For making you feel like you were nothing. We were wrong. So wrong. My father cleared his throat, a rough, painful sound. She's right. We were fools. We thought Celeste's path was the only one that led to a good life. We were blind. And we lost you because of it. Celeste finally spoke, her voice a ragged whisper. "I'm sorry, too, Ava. I never stood up for you. I liked being the favorite. I didn't realize what it was costing you. For 12 years, I had dreamed of this moment. I had fantasized about them groveling, admitting their wrongs. But now that it was here, I felt no triumph. I felt nothing. The anger that had fueled me for so long had burned out, leaving behind a quiet, empty space. The revenge was complete. They were broken. They had confessed. But it didn't fill the hole. It didn't bring back the 16-year-old girl. I stood up and walked to the window. The ocean was calm, a vast, blue plain stretching to the horizon. Your apology is accepted, I said, my back to them. A collective, shuddering sigh went through the room. Does this mean, my father began, hope tentatively coloring his voice. I turned around. It means I forgive you. It doesn't mean the debt is erased. A contract is a contract. You have 19 years left. The hope in their eyes died, but it was replaced by something else, a grim acceptance. They had expected no less. But I wasn't finished. However, I continued, the terms are changing. Effective immediately, you will no longer report to the factory. Confusion clouded their faces. I am starting a new foundation, I explained. The Evans Foundation for STEM Education. It will provide grants and resources to kids like me, the overlooked, the quiet, the ones with hobbies that could change the world. You will work there. Dad, you will handle logistics. Mom, you will manage communications. Celeste, you have a sharp eye for aesthetics, you'll handle the branding and events. The pay will be the same, and the debt repayment will continue. But the work will have meaning. I watched as understanding dawned on their faces. This wasn't just a job transfer. It was a rehabilitation. It was an opportunity to, in some small way, atone for the past by building a different kind of future. My mother started to cry again, but this time, it was different. It was a release. My father's shoulders straightened, just a little. Celeste looked at me, and for the first time, there was no jealousy, no resentment, just a dawning, humble respect. You would trust us with that? My father asked, his voice thick with emotion. I trust you to do the job you're assigned, I said, a hint of my old businesslike tone returning. And I will be watching. That was 6 months ago. The change in them has been nothing short of miraculous. The weary despair has been replaced by a quiet purpose. My father speaks with passion about getting science kits into underfunded schools. My mother has discovered a talent for telling the stories of the brilliant, shy children we help. Celeste's events are elegant and effective, raising millions. They come for Sunday dinner now, not as penitents, but as family. A fractured, scarred, but healing family. We talk about the foundation, about the children, about life. The past is not forgotten, but its power to wound is gone. Last week, Liam won his school science fair. His project was on water purification. We all went to watch him accept his ribbon, me, my parents, Celeste, and a beaming Sophia. As he stood on that stage, his face alight with pride, my mother reached over and squeezed my hand. You did this, she whispered. You saved us all. I looked at my family, the family that had exiled me, and the family I had rebuilt from the ashes of their failure and my revenge. The mansion, the money, the power, it had never been the real reward. The real revenge, I realized, was not in their humiliation, but in their transformation. And the real reward was not in my wealth but in this moment, a hand held in forgiveness, a nephew shining with potential, and the quiet unshakable knowledge that the invisible girl was now the foundation upon which everything stood. Revenge is not always about making them pay. Sometimes, it's about making them see. And in making them see, you finally allow yourself to be seen. The most powerful revenge of all is a life lived so fully, so beautifully, that it becomes the ultimate answer to every wrong you ever suffered. This has been Silent Revenge.